Despite being considered as one of the safer and more reliable transport methods, railways can at times be dangerous, due to the routes they cover or the crime they may be affected by. Dawlish disaster. Dawlish railway station is on the Exeter to Plymouth line and serves the town of Dawlish in Devon, England. It is 12 miles 15 chains, 19.6 kilometers, down the line from Exeter St. David's and 206 miles 7 chains, 331.7 kilometers, measured from London Paddington via Bristol Temple Meads. The track runs along 4 miles of the Devonshire coast. But strong storms and surging seas like these can batter the carriages and cause a lot of disruption. Back in 2014, a section of the sea wall in Dawlish, Devon, collapsed and left the railway to Cornwall suspended in midair. Thankfully no lives were lost. But around 26 families, perhaps around 50 people, were evacuated from the seafront at Dawlish on that night. And then in 2020, the high waves of Storm Ellen and Storm Francis tested the new Dawlish sea wall for 2 days. The wall stood tall but still, the sea waves were so strong they shattered the windows of a train and injured one of the passengers with the broken glass. And to top it off, I bet they felt seasick as well. Unbelievable underwater bullet trains. The United Arab Emirates, or UAE for short, is no stranger to extremely futuristic transportation. If reports are to be believed, you will soon be able to embark on an underwater bullet train journey in India. Yes, as per the buzz, the country has bought 18 E5 series bullet trains from Japan at a whopping cost of $964 million. The trains are known to hit a top speed of 217 km per hour. The first bullet train is expected to run between Mumbai and Ahmedabad and reduce the travel time from 8 hours to just 2. What adds to the lure of this train is the underwater stretch between Thane Creek to Virar. A Dubai-based company has plans to build an underwater rail corridor between Fujairah and Mumbai. This mammoth network will span a length of 2,000 kilometers, and will be used for commuting as well as goods transit. But it wouldn't be the first underwater train out there. The Chinese government also explored the concept of underwater bullet trains back in 2005. Last month, the Chinese government approved a railway that will connect the Chinese city Ningbo to an island called Zhoushan. That bullet train will travel underwater for just over 16 kilometers of its 77 kilometers journey. White Knuckle White Pass and Yukon Route. The White Pass and Yukon Route, WP&YR, is a narrow-gauge, 36-inch, privately owned railroad built during the Klondike Gold Rush. The WP&YR has one of the steepest railroad grades in North America. Starting at sea level in Skagway, the railroad climbs to 2,865 feet / 873 meters at the summit of White Pass in only 20 miles / 32 kilometers of track. In 1994, it was declared an International Historic Civil Engineering Landmark, one of only 42 in the world today. The most dangerous part of it lies in Alaska as the route runs along the dangerous rough terrain area. The height of some cliffs reaches 3,000 meters while some bridge supports are still made of wood. The extended railway bridges are followed by narrow and dark tunnels, followed again by beautiful and at the same time frightening mountain scenery. If you're not scared away by the prospect of taking a ride on a train over the fragile and narrow wooden bridges, you should discover the peculiarities of the railway White Pass and Yukon route personally. Multan Minami-Aso. The Minami-Aso railway crossing lies in Japan. It can be easily called the most feared and dangerous in the world. Part of the rail lines passes across the high iron bridge whose fragile structure seems unreliable at first sight. The bridge is rather narrow and unfenced, and one wrong move of the train driver seems to be enough for the train to break downwards. The railway bridge isn't the only danger that expects passengers. The train track of the Aso Minami route lies close to live volcanoes along with Mount Aso, Japan's biggest active volcano. Nobody knows when the next eruption is coming, that's why there is no guarantee that a train with passengers will not appear at the foot of the volcano. And to make it even more daunting, part of the track passes over the almost 200 feet high, fragile, Daiichi Shirakawa Bridge, which was first constructed back in 1928. If you don't think about all the dangers too hard, the landscape seen from the window will seem fantastic. Green hills covered with a dense thicket alternate with ravines and rapid rivers. After the volcanic eruption, the burnt landscape looks less romantic. Forests look frightening and oppressive. Astounding Argojid. The Argojid Railroad runs from Jakarta to Bandung in Indonesia. It is an extremely high route that runs across the Sakurutug Pylon Trestle Bridge that can send a shiver running down your spine. What is most eerie is the sheer huge drop deep down in the subtropical valley below. With no guardrails in sight, this bridge sits a little over 260 feet above the river Saikubang and is held up only by those huge steel pillars beneath it. Although tourists will be rewarded with fascinating views, the bridge itself is unfenced, making it unsafe despite counterclaims by its engineers. Accidents have occurred in the past. Among these, the last major one took place in 2002 when the train derailed, but miraculously no one was hurt. Outstanding Outeniqua-Chutjo. The Outeniqua-Chutjo Railroad runs along the coast of the Western Cape in South Africa and is the most dangerous and spectacular in the country. The railroad was built in 1928 and links the towns of George and Knysna. The length of the line is 67 kilometers, however, a one-way journey lasts 3 hours. The first railway along the coast was constructed in 1908, but because of the serious accident that occurred a couple of days after its opening, the movement was suspended for the next 20 years. Nowadays, the Caimans Bridge is considered the most dangerous stretch of track. It hangs over the Indian Ocean. They will go by train across the steep rocky coast, cross several high railway bridges and enjoy picturesque beaches from the height. In 2006, one part of the rail line was affected deeply by flooding. Fortunately, it has been restored at the earliest possible time, and in 2008 the legendary Caimans Bridge already served as the place of filming a marketing video. Georgetown Loop Railroad, Colorado. The one that derails in just the right places. Completed in the year 1884, the Georgetown Loop Railroad was considered an engineering marvel of its time and one of Colorado's main attractions. The train runs between Georgetown and Silver Plume for a total distance of 4.5 miles and ascends an elevation of 640 feet through the mountainous terrain comprising of the Devil's Gate High Bridge, which is about 100 feet high. The scariest part of this whole route is this bridge, as the heavy winds force the train to slow down on its speed to maintain a balance. The track tends to run across embankments, not bad, through cuts, a little scary, and over trestle bridges, nope. One particular section, the Devil's Gate High Bridge, will prove particularly noteworthy for anyone with a touch of phobia. But put your mind at ease, in late 2017, the railroad suffered a derailment as a train car full of passengers tipped off the track. If the incident had occurred elsewhere on the track, such as at the Devil's Gate, the results could have been nothing short of catastrophic. When trains meet planes. The Fianarantsoa East Coast Railway dates back to colonial times and has never been renovated. The rails date from 1889 and come from the Krupp Steelworks, Germany, taken from an Alsatian railway line at the end of the First World War. And the wagons come from Switzerland. The construction lasted 10 years, from 1926 to 1936, and opened up the east of the country to promote the exportation of Malagasy agricultural products to Europe. The aim was to connect Manakara to the port of Toamasina, Manakara Fianarantsoa by train and Fianarantsoa Antananarivo Toamasina by road. The FCE is 163 kilometers of railway track, 18 stations, 48 tunnels, the longest of which is 1,072 meters long, 67 bridges, 4 large viaducts, and an airport. Indeed, the line passes through the Manakara Airport's runway. The route from the east coast, Manakara, to Fianarantsoa has an altitude difference of 1,200 meters with a slope of up to 3.66%, one of the steepest in the world. It should be noted that the FCE is truly strategic for the region. It is even vital for about 200,000 farmers. Villages isolated in the Emerald Forest would be cut off from the world without this line. These farmers would have no way of transporting their products and food. As there is only one train that is railworthy, the line provides only 2 round trips per week. A trip requires about 300 liters of diesel fuel and lasts between 12 and 18 hours. At the station, farmers rush to the wagons to pile up their goods, nearly 400 passengers and 200 tons of loads. No wonder the average speed is 20 kilometers per hour. However, this gives travelers, especially tourists, time to admire the landscape, cliffs, hills dotted with banana trees, jackfruit trees, mango trees, and Ravinia, the emblematic tree of Madagascar, rice fields, waterfalls. These magnificent landscapes of greenery and water are accompanied by a sweet fruity aroma. Whether inside or outside, fruit is omnipresent. The Death Railway. A harrowing historic event that steeped in notoriety, tragedy and immortalized in film, the construction of the Death Railway connecting Thailand with modern-day Myanmar was an arduous, grueling project that claimed thousands of lives, only to see parts of the railway removed and sold following the conclusion of the war. Created to move men and supplies to the Burmese front, here's the story behind this dark corner of history and its bloody railway. Construction began in September 1942 in Burma and November 1942 in Thailand. According to the Australian government, the labourers consisted of more than 250,000 Southeast Asians and 60,000 prisoners of war from various allied countries. The work itself was backbreaking, Often without the necessary tools, the workers slaved under a hot sun and were brutalized by the unempathetic Japanese and Korean overseers. Many succumbed to diseases, which were easily spread given they were forced to live in squalor and without even basic hygiene, and starvation was a real threat due to the physical nature of the work and with food in short supply, with as little as 600 calories the daily intake of the workers. The workers were maltreated, malnourished, and exhausted, and as a result, it's thought that more than 100,000 people died during the construction of the railway, showing precisely why it came to be known as the Death Railway. It's thought that one worker died for each wooden sleeper that was laid for the track. Who of you would be brave enough to take a ride on all of these extreme railways? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching.